I have this theory that we can use blockchain technology to increase people's connection to the art in itself, which is absurd to say, right? Because most people think that music is the biggest part of their life. But what if you can connect to music a lot more than you're connecting to it right now?
GM, welcome to GM Good Music, the podcast where we explore the innovative world of music NFTs and the artists revolutionizing the scene. I'm your host, Josh Savage, and today we're joined by a dynamic force in the music NFT space, Jayden Violet, from his roots in New Jersey to creating a unique blend of music and Web3 and building a community. Jayden's journey is a testament to the power of self-learning and entrepreneurial spirit. We'll explore his journey from hip-hop dance crews to pioneering music NFT projects. So Jayden, GM, it's fantastic to have you here. How are you and where are you in the world?
Yeah, no, good morning. I appreciate that intro. This is the first time I was ever on a podcast and someone mentioned the hip hop dancing. So that's actually very, very cool. But no, I appreciate you, Josh, for having me. I'm in New Jersey. I'm Jayden Violet, a musician, first and foremost, now community builder, founder, and just excited to talk to you about all these topics. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm so fascinated to dig in. And why don't we just start to the very beginning? Where did it kind of start for you, where you kind of got involved in music? And tell me a bit more about your family background and how it led to getting you here today.
Yeah, it's super, super interesting, right? Because I guess if you asked me this a year ago, I was always going to say that I was never like one of those kids that grew up making music, right? Or grew up really knowing that I want to do music full time. But, now that I'm 22 and I look back at it, it kind of was always something that was around my environment. I think the only difference, right, was that it was always bestowed upon me that this only could be a hobby, right? This only could be a hobby, right? Like dancing, music, anything creative, right? That has to stay something that's a passion. You can't make a living out of it, right? It was weird, right? Because I actually grew up in Newton, New Jersey, right? It was like 6 people in a 2-bedroom apartment, and we always had like just Michael Jackson playing. We had DVDs, and that's kind of how I got into dancing. And my dad was always a singer as well, right? But then again, all of these years into elementary school, middle school, high school, those things were always around me, but it was always told that I cannot do that as a career. So I never really even thought about it, right? I think what I was doing in middle school, high school, I was really into business, right? I was really into getting into this big prestigious business school, getting into these clubs, doing good in class and all of these things, right? Not necessarily because it was something that I was passionate about, but just because that is what my environment, my parents, my family, the peers around me was telling me that this is the path that you need to go on in life, right? It wasn't until, later on, like junior year, going into senior year of high school, where I really had to self-evaluate because of a lot of things that were happening in my life. And I was like, okay, what do I want to do? And I think getting rejected from all of the colleges that I wanted to get into kind of played a part or a role into this, decision-making process. But I really started to just explore my creative side more, right? I don't really know what the catalyst was, right? But I remember opening up my laptop. I think the easiest answer is, going through a heartbreak and not knowing, what to do with all of these emotions. I opened up my laptop. I downloaded my first, music making software, FL Studio, and I made my first beat. And I think like literally just off of making my first beat and going through all these experiences and being able to, I don't know, just lift that off my chest and put that on my laptop, I'm like, yo, I absolutely love this. I love making music and I want to do this just off of that. And then I kind of took a full 180 turn and I really fell off all of the things that I was working towards in the 6, 7, 8 years that I was actually in school pursuing quote unquote business, right? So I took a full 180. I started doing terrible in school. And long story short, I dropped out of college after about 2-3 semesters to pursue music full time. And it's been about 5-6 years since. And it's been a beautiful journey and it's been a fulfilling journey, to say the least, right? Because I'm actually doing something that I love and something that I can see myself doing for the rest of my life. Whereas all my peers are kind of doing things that they don't necessarily have a reason for why they're doing the things they do. And it's kind of sad to see. And I'm very grateful for me to make that 180 turn.
Mate, it's incredible because you're just getting started. It's incredible. I knew you were young. Gosh, that's incredible. And we'll delve deeper into it, but especially with all that you've done already in the Web3 space and in music, it's just like mind blowing. So I I'm so excited for your journey ahead. Um, can we take it back? I mean, your dad's a singer, you said. Did he ever pursue it? What was his vibe with it all?
It's weird, my father, it's a lot of ironic behaviors, right, and a lot of ironic patterns when it comes to my parents, specifically my dad, right, because he's always loved music. In fact, that I think he has a really really beautiful voice. He doesn't sing English songs. Well, he actually got me into like Billy Joel, Elton John. He loves Elvis Presley, which kind of brought my love for them up as well. But he's a really good singer, right? Like I remember he put me in this, classical Indian singing class, private lesson for a couple of weeks, and I hated it, so I quit. But I remember him, coming in one of the days, and the singing teacher asked my dad to do the ragas, right? So the ragas are like sa re ga ma pa da ni sa, which is the same thing in English as like do re mi fa, all that stuff, right? So he sang that, and she was like, "Wow, like you don't even need any lessons. Like you like your singing is perfect," right? So like I just always like he's a very good singer, right? But he has just such a strict mindset of like the thing that you're passionate about, you can't make it into a career, right? Just because like, and I'm very empathetic towards that because that's how he grew up, right? And maybe even
Mm,
so back then it was true because the internet wasn't so big and you can't make everything a career like you can nowadays. But I think there's a common pattern where it's like, he's always thought like that. And even so, like when it comes to me dropping out of like college and being at Rutgers Business School, and after 2 semesters completely leaving, entrepreneurship is still a really really big passion of mine. I just hate learning about things that I actually enjoy because I rather learn through experience and learn through myself. And he actually went off to not pursue music but pursue business, and it was very ironic because he was very disappointed and sad that I dropped out of school, even
mm.
though all of the business things he's pursuing and made a career out of, even to this day, was used without even a college degree, right? Like
Right,
he doesn't
interesting.
even use his college degree. I think he got like a college degree in like mathematics
Who
or something.
does?
Like, what are you gonna do? Like, what are you, like, you know what I mean? Like, he got it in mathematics, and he went off to like work at a convenience store, right? He turned his convenience store into a smoke shop, and then he sold the smoke shop. Now he's pursuing online cologne business, right? Where he makes a complete
Mm,
living from just selling his cologne on Walmart, eBay, and his own storefronts, right? So it's like all of these like things that he's pursuing, and now that he's finally successful like in his business, he's finally starting to take music gigs, which is very interesting to see. And this all happened within the last year, right? Like just now, he was just telling me he's going to this like one senior center place, and they're paying him to sing there. And now every other week he has a new like music gig and stuff like that. And like I don't want to say that I played a role into him thinking that he could do that because that's pretty naive, but like it's very
might
like
be.
interesting to maybe, right, but it's like it's very interesting to see, right, all of like the ironic patterns, right? And yeah, he now is finally the time when he's like actually pursuing like his entrepreneurial side, his music side, and maybe that's why he's a little more lenient on me than he was 3 4 years ago. But yeah.
That's epic, man. So great to hear that your dad's really getting stuck into that, into his passion now. It, if anything, it shows it's never too late to do that, right?
Mm-hmm. 100%, man. 100%. And but still like a part of him, like, the other day I was telling him how I hung out with this one friend in New York, right? It was like this business meeting that I was trying to pursue, and he was like an investment banker, right? And I noticed that he was making like 200,000, 300,000 a year, which is like absolutely insane, right? To make that much by being an investment banker. And then even like nowadays, my dad's like, see, like that's what I've been telling you. If you could have been an investment banker, 4 or 5 years, and you could have been good. And I'm just like, yeah, but I would have been miserable. But that's besides
Yeah,
the point. So
yeah. So, where does the dancing come into all of this?
dancing is like honestly my first introduction to art as a whole, right? Like before I even thought about singing, before I even thought about making music, the first introduction to art for me was dancing, right? Like I mentioned before, like right now I live in Franklin Township, but before then I was living in Newton. And I just remember like the first thing I was introduced to before even singing any of that was mostly just dancing, right? Like my parents, my family had these Michael Jackson DVDs of him performing like Billie Jean, of him performing like Thriller, of him performing like Dirty Diana, all of these like iconic songs, and they just put these DVDs in, and I was just on the table like copying his dances, right? And then every year we had family functions. I used to dress up as Michael Jackson with a black top hat, with a black suit and
No
stuff. And I used to
way.
come, yeah, and I used to do like the same exact Billie Jean dance that he did in Motown, where he first ever did the moonwalk. And I literally have that dance like memorized. And I was just doing that dance at family functions or like at these big events and stuff. And I was performing. And yeah, this was before I even thought about singing, before I even thought about any of that. Like I was just dancing, right? And then going into, elementary school, middle school, early years of high school, like I was just in dance troupe, right? I was just in dance troupe, and I used to come to school at like 5 a.m. We did dance from 5 a.m. to like 7 a.m. And then 7 a.m., that's when first period started, and I went to my first class of the day. And yeah, from there we were doing like assemblies, we were doing like all of these things, just dancing. And I was just really into it, right? But I think I was just really into music as a whole, right?
Mm.
So yeah, at a very early age, that was the first ever thing that I did.
So when are we going to see these dance moves at your events?
I don't know. I don't know about that. It was it was weird. I don't know. Like ever since like end of high school, I kind of shifted away from dancing, but I like shifted more into making music. But I don't know why I ever
Okay.
like stopped
Why not both?
dancing.
You can be the Web3 Michael Jackson.
Maybe we'll have to see. Maybe a dance music collectible could come out soon.
For sure, that would be fantastic. So tell me how you ended up getting more into the singing part and how that experience was. How did it feel getting more into the singing stuff? Did you enjoy it in the beginning? Was it really nerve-wracking? What was the vibe there?
Yeah, it was weird, right? Because I could split up my influences into three categories, right? The first one is Michael Jackson, and that's how I really got into dancing. The second one is Justin Bieber, which catches a lot of people by surprise, but I love
Hmm.
Justin Bieber just because I followed his journey ever since his first ever song, and I think I have him to credit. I have Michael Jackson to credit for my dancing and getting into art. Justin Bieber to credit for me getting into singing, right? Because that's when I really started to fall in love with singing. Like I used to remember watching like The Voice and America's Got Talent and seeing these people sing and the audience go crazy, and I'm like I'm about to do that one day. You know what I mean? Like I need to do that, and I was like singing these songs, and I remember back then there was no such thing as TikTok, right? But there was Vine, if people remember, right? And I used to record myself playing the piano, and I was really into like singing songwriting, right? I was really into like the singer songwriter type vibe. Like that's what I was doing because I didn't even understand that it's possible to make a full on produced song. Like I didn't even think that was possible, right? The only thing that I kind of thought my limits were was like, okay, I have a guitar, I have a piano, and I'm going to be singing live, kind of like America's Got Talent and things like that, right?
Right.
So I was always doing that. I think that started kind of in middle school. Um, yeah, around middle school, probably sixth grade-ish, seventh grade-ish. That's when I really started to want to sing, and I was just singing for fun. But then again, it was something that I was doing for fun because my environment was telling me that it can't be something you can make a career out of, right? But I've always known in the back of my head, like this is what I want to do. And I was singing, making videos of myself. I could probably still find them, and they're pretty embarrassing. But it wasn't until the second half of high school, right? And the third inspiration, there's Michael, there's Justin Bieber, and the third one is Travis Scott, right? And the reason that I say Travis Scott is because he's the person that I fell in love with at the end of high school that really showed me that your voice and a piano don't have to be the only sounds that influence someone's feelings, right? When you produce something,
Okay.
right? When you introduce different elements into a production, right? Whether it's a violin, whether it's synths, whether it's drums, these things, even when it comes to your own vocals as an instrument, right? Like using auto tune, like all these things can invoke feelings on other people. And it doesn't have to be just singing songwriting. It can be a whole world, right? I think that's when I first opened up my laptop and I was like, okay, let me try producing something, right? Let me just get 8 bars and let me just try producing a loop and see how that goes, right? And I produced my first loop, and I took my singing passions and I mixed it into this newfound love of production, and I made my first ever song, and the song's called No More. And it's funny because I am a big believer of not taking down any music because I think music is stamps of your life and it should be
Love that.
always available. Yeah, so it's still up on my SoundCloud. If you go to my SoundCloud and you scroll all the way down to the first ever song that I released 5 years ago, it's called No More, and it was my first ever fully produced, fully vocal and everything mixed song that I put out there, it's absolutely terrible, but I love it. I love it so much because it was the start. It was the first stamp of my journey of really doing music and making songs. And ever since then, it was just literally creation after creation, improvement after improvement.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful.
Shows how far you've come. I love that. Although I must say, I'm really glad my first songs are no longer available to the public. Epic. So, how was the college? How did it feel after you dropped out of college, and where did you go from there?
Oof, well, man, dropping out of college was a big thing, right? Obviously, coming from an immigrant family household, I'm sure a lot of people can relate. Dropping out of university is probably the biggest fear that a parent has, right? That's the biggest thing that you can do that your parents don't want. And I don't know, for me, I've always had that mentality, right? That I rather my parents be disappointed in me in the short term and then understand when I'm finally successful, because I do believe that I will be. Or, I can take the other route and do something that I don't want to do. And then 20 years from now, I'll resent my parents, right, for the rest of my life. And I'd rather take the former. So I think dropping out of college was a big thing that I've always kept mentioning to my parents. Like, it started off with me taking a semester off. I was like, let me take a semester off. Let me take a semester off. And they just would not let me do that, right? And then it was one day, I think after the first semester, where I was like, okay, listen, if I can prove to you that I can make $10,000 over the summer, you have to let me take a semester off. That was the deal that we had, right? And they were like, okay, let's do it. After 60 days of me saying that every single day, right? They finally said, okay, let's do this. You have to make $10,000 over the summer, and then we'll let you take the semester off. And then after that, it was really just me getting into my entrepreneurial bag. Like I said, right? I hate learning about the stuff that I'm passionate about, but my second passion is still entrepreneurship. I love making money, right? But I think that's just a better way of saying I love building things, right? I love starting from this and then just
Yeah.
building, whether that's money, whether that's community, whether that's my music, all of that, right? So I remember that's when I really got into option trading. I really got into Amazon FBA, drop shipping, all of these things. And then within those 2 months, I made about $10,000 to $15,000, right? And I was like, okay, bet this is my proof that now I can finally pursue my passion. So after that, I showed my mom, and she's like, bet, okay, I took the semester off. And after that semester off, I never went back, and then, they were always telling me you should go back, blah, blah, blah. But I think they've just grown to understand that this is the way that it is, right? And they could either be super super angry, or they can just understand and live with it. I think after that, it was just a grind. It was really really just a grind. I think people don't understand. uh you know People who work 9 to 5s, it's cool. There's a sense of security, there's all of that, right? And all of my peers were taking down that route. There's no one necessarily around me that also dropped out of college and were really really passionate and grinding, right? There was a lot of people around me that dropped out, but were doing completely terrible things. A lot of people. And by terrible, I mean
Mm.
like, things that don't contribute to a future. Um, but for me, I think I was the only person in my town that dropped out and really was determined to accomplish things, right? So for me, yeah, there's people working 9 to 5s and stuff, but for me, it was 9 to 11, 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. every single day. Grind, 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 waking up, working 18 hours a day, going to sleep with literally no improvement and no steps forward, right? And you go to sleep, you wake up, and you do it again. And I think I did that year after year after year. And now it's like my third year since dropping out of college, I think I would say. I have a lot of time ahead of me, but I don't know. For me, it's I see all these people around me. I see I would have graduated. I think last year is when I would have graduated, right? Like that's when all my peers graduated college, and now they're getting jobs. Some of them got apartments in New York. Some of them are getting paid 6 figures a year. And for me, it's like, okay, I need to prove to myself and to my parents that this path that I took is going to pay off, right? That means I need to work 10 times harder than all of these people, right? And I know I have a lot of time and I am very patient, but in the micro, I'm so like, I need to get stuff done, right? Especially now it's 2024. Like every single day is needs to be squeezed. And yeah, I think ever since I dropped out, my mindset has just been in go mode. Honestly, sacrificed a lot.
Yeah, and that shows. Yeah, man, that's incredible because it sounds like you really made the most of the time that you would have spent in college. And sometimes I do wonder, I went to college or university for me. I studied classical music degree, and I of course, don't really do classical music anymore, but I do wonder what if I spent those 3 years, saved a ton of money to invest in kind of traveling and like touring or something like that, and kind of started my career earlier. However, I still don't regret it because I think it taught me a lot of things, taught me a lot about myself as well. And I don't regret it, but I certainly do have that kind of in a parallel universe, what would have happened. And it's great to see that you've completely capitalized on that. So when you dropped out of college, was that when you started exploring Web3? Was that like brand new after that, or because you got into it thanks to TikTok video? Is that right?
Yeah, I got into it because of a TikTok video. It wasn't after college. There was definitely some time. It was man, time is, trying to look back at timelines is so difficult because everything's so bundled up. But it was definitely not right after college. I think I dropped out, and it may have been 2.5, 3 years after dropping out is when I got into Web3, I would say.
Two and a
Yeah,
half, 3 years.
yeah. Yeah, 2.5, 3 years before I even got into Web3. I got into Web3 at the end of 2021. I dropped out maybe a year and a half now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah, I dropped out in 2020. So like a year, 2 years almost.
Gosh, 2020. I can't believe that's 4 years
I
ago
know.
now. Um,
It's crazy.
and actually, before we delve into Web3, after you dropped out of college, what was the dream then?
Yeah. The dream then is honestly the same as the dream is right now, right? Which is crazy. Like my dreams have honestly, have not changed ever since I dropped out of college. It's always going to be I want to be in a stadium that's sold out and me singing my song to thousands of people, right? And whether that was the
Wow.
case in 2020, right? Yeah, and like what, or that's the case right now, even though I'm in Web3, even though we've built this community and stuff, it's still my goal, right? And I don't think I could really settle until like, you always see those videos of artists like standing in the stadium, all the fans with the flashlight on, yelling their song back to them and stuff. And like, I don't know, I feel like I can say that I'm proud when I accomplish that, right? And I think that's still what I'm striving for.
Yeah. Jayden, you're going to have to get those dance moves off to fill that stadium.
I know I need to be a total package, right? And that can only happen with the dances.
I mean, you don't have to, of course, everyone each to their own. So, so you watched this NFT TikTok video, then what? And why did that inspire you?
It inspired me, right? I watched this TikTok video of someone making $10,000 under 2 minutes by selling their songs as collectibles, right? And I thought this was absolutely beautiful. I was like, damn, that is more money that I've ever seen in my past 3, 4 years of making music. Spotify pays 0.0034 cents a stream. My highest streaming song is 100,000 because of a TikTok video that blew up, and that only gave me about what 250, $300, right? It was absolutely ridiculous. I never thought about making money from my music consistently. I've always thought that, okay, I'm gonna one day blow up, and that's when all the money's gonna pour in, right? And that was kind of always my mindset. I think the reason that TikTok video really ticked things off, and that's the way or path that I've chosen to get into Web3 is because of the past 2, 3 years after dropping out of college, right? I think all of those years making music prior to Web3, I've always had opportunities to be early to things, and I never actually took advantage of being early to things, right? And I think that's how you really, really capitalize and grow,
Yeah.
right? We live in such an attention economy, right? Everything is about capitalizing attention. And, people like to complain about, this didn't happen for me. Everyone has the same opportunities, right? Yes, there's certain advantages, disadvantages, but at the end of the day, every single person who has their phone and internet has the same opportunities. The only difference between people that move forward and succeed between the people that don't is who actually takes advantage of those opportunities, right? And I think I've always seen those opportunities right in front of me, and I've never taken advantage of them, right? And I'll list off two examples, right? The first example was I remember when Vine shut down, and I saw all of these creators blow up on Vine, right? Logan Paul, Jake Paul, some of the biggest known creators in the world blew up because they took advantage of the attention on Vine when it was early.
I thought it was YouTube. Wow.
Yeah, it was Vine in combination with YouTube, right? But they really grew their following and they really blew up because of Vine, right? And I remember in middle school being on Vine, and I'm like, yo, this is my opportunity. I'm going to post singing videos and I'm going to blow up and be the next Justin Bieber, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't take it seriously. I said these things, right? But my actions didn't align with the things that I was thinking. I was posting maybe one singing video every month, one singing video every 2 weeks. Meanwhile, Logan Paul and Jake Paul, they realized how big of an opportunity, it is to be early to Vine. And they were posting 3, 4 times every single day, collaborating with other creators. They really blew up and built a sustainable career. Same exact thing happened, to me when Musical.ly turned into TikTok. And I remember after Vine, I was like, I can't wait till the next app blows up. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there. And then lo and behold, TikTok came along and everyone was posting 5 times a day, really blowing up in the early stages. And I did the same thing I did with Vine. I failed to adapt. I was so stuck on Instagram that I just didn't post on TikTok. First year went by, 2 years went by, and all of the peers, all the musicians that were really taking advantage now have sustainable careers, have actual fan bases, right?
Yeah.
So, these things happen to me time and time again. When I discovered that TikTok video about Web3 music, about selling your songs as collectibles, I was like, okay, I'm not going to miss out on being early to something ever again. Thankfully enough, I had COVID during that time. So I was actually stuck in my, I was stuck in my house during the holidays. Yeah, thankfully it was weird. It was Christmas. I was like, this sucks. But then that's when I discovered the TikTok. And that's when I was like, okay, let me open up my Twitter account. I had 50 followers on Twitter because I hated using the app, but I was like, I need to, because I need to take advantage of this. I need to adapt. And ever since then, man, this is the third year going into me really taking my Twitter account seriously. And yeah, I finally have like an actual community. We've thrown shows, we've sold out collectibles and stuff just because I took advantage of that.
What was that TikTok video, that original one that you watched that inspired you, and who made it?
It was if I'm not mistaken, I think it was a Daniel Allen TikTok video, right? And I think it was him selling selling him his song on Sound XYZ, which is like for those listening, it's like a music collectible platform. But back then it was in not sure, like maybe someone watches this podcast 2 years from now and who knows where that is right now. But back then, right, in early 2021, it was like in preseason, right? So there was maybe one artist dropping every single week. And they were selling out 25 collectibles at like 0.10 Ethereum each, grossing around $9,000, $10,000 because Ethereum was at 4,000, which is nuts, right? So I remember seeing that video. That's what got me into it. Then I looked into other things. I remember very vividly, I read or listened to an Alan Kingdom podcast. Alan Kingdom is another amazing artist that was one of the OGs in Web3 music. He actually worked with Kanye, etc. He's not too much into Web3 music anymore, but back then he was really, really into it. And I remember reading his story. I remember reading Spotty Wi-Fi's story. And then I just really dove deep. Funny enough, I got into the metaverse first. I remember telling my cousins the metaverse is going to take over all of this and crazy stuff. I was spending like, my entire COVID days just in the metaverse on Twitter Spaces, asking questions and all of that. Ironically, I hate the metaverse now, but that's a whole other conversation. And yeah,
So what's the next Vine/TikTok of today?
Oh, man, I think it's going to be very difficult for that to happen, right? Because if you think about when these new platforms come, there's so many years in between, right? If you think about Vine and then you think about when TikTok came, there was at least 7 years in between that gap, if not more, right? So I think if you're trying to look for the next platform that has true organic attention or organic reach, I should say, I think it's going to be a while until the next TikTok comes along, right? Because TikTok is so revolutionary, right? It kind of transforms things from a social graph to an interest graph, right? Now you're not scrolling through your feed and seeing friends and family posts. You're scrolling through your feed and seeing what's interesting to you, what aligns with your interest, and that's what's kind of brought to your attention. And I think all of the other platforms copied that interest graph model, right? Now you have the TikTok feed, of course, that is like insane, right? You talk about bubblegum 1 second and you're going through a bubblegum TikTok video the next, right? Now you have Instagram Reels, same thing based off of interest graph. Now you have Twitter that is also based off of interest graph. You have Facebook Reels, you have YouTube Shorts, all of these things, right? So it's going to
Yeah.
be very difficult for something to come along that kind of competes or provides a whole new model. I think what's interesting right now is rather than trying to figure out what's the new TikTok or new Vine, it's what tools are these platforms offering that uniquely and very niche, offer this organic reach, right? So I think a couple things that I'm looking at right now is TikTok Live is honestly one of the biggest things that give you as much attention as possible with having as little followers as possible. And anyone could kind of test this right now, right? At the time that this podcast is happening right now, and I'm kicking myself because I need to double down on it. If you open up a TikTok live, you need 1,000 followers on TikTok to do so. But say you have 1,000, right? You can get 0 views on your TikTok videos. You open up a TikTok live. What TikTok will do is it'll automatically push you out to groups of people. It won't push you to your followers. It'll notify your followers, but it's actually pushing you to multiple groups of people that are just scrolling through the For You page. And you will immediately start off with your numbers skyrocketing with a bunch of people that don't even know you joining the live. And I did my first live of the year 2 days ago. I had 250 people in there in the first minute, right?
No
Obviously that
way.
yeah, it's actually crazy. Obviously
Gosh.
that number dwindles down, right? At 250 the first minute, second minute it was 200, next minute it was 100, next minute, because the thing is people you need to retain people. And that's the challenge
Yeah.
or puzzle that I'm trying to figure out now, but the reach is there, right? To reach people is there because TikTok is just pushing your live out to multiple people. And it's very difficult to find something else that's doing something similarly. I still think TikTok is possible to blow up in to this day. It's harder than 2 years ago, but I still think it's possible. You just need to be very unique and figure out a method that works for you. What else? There's a lot, right? Like for businesses, LinkedIn Reels is actually super, super underrated, in my opinion, because
Are you
most
using it?
business people, I'm not using it because like I'm really focusing and doubling down on my music, right? But if I were to like, I'm also like starting this like kind of marketing company on the very low. Like I'm not talking about it at all, but I'm actually contracted by 2 companies right now, and I'm marketing for them on social media, Web3 side, right? So like if I were to really double down on that and make that into something I'm doing full time, then I would probably go to LinkedIn and I would start making reels about educational videos and stuff and then target businesses to then hire me through that, right? Because that's where most CEOs and founders are rather
Mm.
than TikTok or Instagram reels and stuff like that. And that also gets a lot of organic reach. So I would say those 2 things. Yeah. And I think Twitter spaces, X spaces now are super, super underrated and are going to blow up in the future. So yeah.
Yeah, they have died down a little bit at the moment, though, haven't they?
X spaces?
Yeah.
It's not as big as the hype was a couple of like I guess a year and a half ago, but I just think like that type setting is just so like it's so valuable, man, right? I think like I would rather tune into a X space where Elon Musk is speaking to Vivek Ramaswamy, right? Like the person running for president, right? And they're just having a conversation about, what's wrong with the world. And there's the
In real
open
time.
debate and open dialogue. Like I would much rather tune into that than opening up CNN, right? And I think a lot more people would as well. They're just not aware of it, right? So I think that is going to be big, right? We just need a lot of big players. Like I genuinely believe like things like Good Morning America or the Jimmy Fallon show and like things like that, I genuinely believe we'll see some of those next big, show type esques, basically foundation wise, starting from X Spaces or Twitter Spaces, in
Yeah.
my opinion. Yeah, but it'll take a long time, like 3, 4, 5, maybe years. But yeah.
Jadyn, where'd you get all this wealth of knowledge from to know what's still current and the place to be?
I don't know, man. I think it's funny, right? I think like dropping out of school, it helped me a lot, right? And a lot of the times I have to check myself because I love business and I also love money. Like who doesn't love money, right? And a lot of the times I find myself subconsciously tying my success to the amount of money that I have, which is bad in my opinion, right? Because it's good and bad. And it's bad in a sense where you can get caught up in that, right? Where you don't necessarily look at all the skills that you've obtained, even if you don't have the financials to accommodate for that, right? And I think even though I haven't made a ton of money, right? And I haven't utilized these past couple of years not being in university to make a ton of money and stuff. I think I've spent a lot of time in these places to be able to like really build up these skills to understand, right, undervalued attention, to understand the psychology of a consumer, right, to understand like, even right now with selling my recent, collectible project Raver on my NFT project, like understanding, selling things to a community, right, and how difficult that is, right. And I know you know that as well, right. So it's very
especially as an
difficult,
artist. Yeah.
especially as an artist, right? So like, even if it hasn't sold out, even if I haven't made millions of dollars, even if I don't have 100,000 followers on TikTok, I feel like these past years have really let me I don't know, build up these skills a lot more, right? So that for the next 5 years now, I can use those skills to really help me. And I think I wouldn't have had these like skills that allow me to, I don't know, talk about these ideas if I did go down the traditional path of college and stuff like that, because I would have just learned a completely different I would have been learning in a completely different ecosystem, right? So yeah.
100%. Mate, I completely agree with you there, because like, if anything, I mean, we showed up on X Spaces every single day. The fact that you host yours still week every day as well is incredible. And I don't know about you, but I was such a goofball. I mean, I'm still a goofball when I'm on Spaces, but if anything, I felt so out of place, like having to present myself, all of that crap. I just wasn't comfortable with that as an artist, because at the end of the day, most artists are introverts as well, but we just had to
Yeah.
learn to be extroverted to kind of survive, right? So but like, we've definitely put our 10,000 hours in, I'd say,
Hmm.
from 2 years of doing it nonstop. And I think if anyone listening to this, it's like, I know it feels weird jumping on Spaces or like presenting yourself, but like, you just get used to it and you just kind of learn as you go. Why don't you tell me, Jayden, about your first time on Twitter Spaces and how that led to you dropping your first music NFTs? And also, a point I really want to focus on as well is like, I love that you've said that you love money, but looking at your Web3 career, you were very cautious about your approach, how you dropped music NFTs. You didn't jump straight in. You were very particular about it, which I think led to a lot of your success to where you are today. So tell me about that.
Yeah, 100%. I January 1st, 2022 is when I hosted my first ever X Space, and I called it Underground Violet Rave, mainly because two reasons, right? Back then there was not much happening for Web3 music, right? There was not much of a community for Web3 music. There was a couple handful of individuals that were really paving their own paths, but with X Spaces specifically, I haven't really seen like town halls where musicians could come together, learn about the technology, but also meet each other and learn about each other. So, just going back to the idea and theory that when you're early to something, that's when you have the biggest potential to grow. I kind of seen that with Web3 music and more specifically X Spaces. So I started my first ever space called Underground Violet Rave just because I thought it sounded cool. And people were sharing their music every single night. So I was like, this is kind of like a digital rave, and we did it every single day. And before I even mention and go into the journey of that, it was definitely scary and nerve wracking to do that space, right? A lot of people, right, are
Right.
thinking about hosting, a podcast, or a lot of people are thinking about hosting a space, heck, even joining a space and introducing themselves to a new group of people. It's scary, right? It
Yeah.
wouldn't be fun if it wasn't scary, right? It wouldn't be you wouldn't see the growth that you're looking for if it wasn't scary. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it, and then there's no value inherently, right? So I, am an introvert, I would like to say, but just like you said, in order to survive, I needed to force myself to be an extrovert. I needed to force myself to basically really identify when I'm having that fearful feeling, I should say, putting that to the side and then doing exactly that, right? Because that's when I'll have the most potential to grow. And it happens to me every single day. It doesn't really get easier. It just gets it gets easier to be aware of that fearful feeling. And when you're aware of it, that's when you know you should do it. And I get disappointed in myself when I don't do that thing. And the same thing happened with me with TikTok Live. Literally 3 days ago, I was so scared to do a TikTok Live because I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to talk about. I'm going to look weird and stuff. And yeah, like rightfully so, I started my TikTok Live, first one of the year, and I was mad awkward and mad weird, right? Like I didn't know what to talk about. People were leaving. I'm like, oh my God, what's happening and stuff. But at least I broke the ice, and I'm proud of myself for putting that fear to the side and doing it, because now it's going to be easier to do it the next time, right? So all of that to say, right, I was fearful of doing it, but we did it, right? And we hosted our first ever X Space, Underground Violet Rave. It was me and one other person. We were talking for 4 hours, just like we were on a phone call. one person joined and we're like, yo, what's up? A person joined. And then they left and we're like, ah, shit, right? And then that just kept happening day after day. But then someone stayed, and then the next person stayed, and the next person stayed. And then we just did it for 4 months every single day. And then after 4 months, someone was like, why not host this Underground Violet rave in real life? Right. And
Wow.
just like I've never hosted a podcast or never hosted a show before, I've never hosted an IRL event before. Heck, back then I never even performed before, right? So I was like, damn, like I don't know about this. But then going back to identifying that fearful feeling, and then if you feel that, that's when you know you should do it. We're like, screw it, let's run it up,
Yeah.
right? So we held the
Push yourself
first.
outside your comfort zone. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So we held the first ever Underground Violet Rave, UVR for short, in Brooklyn in June of 2022, if I'm not mistaken. And ever since then, everything else was just, history. We've hosted 8 raves so far in 7 different cities. Been hosting this X Show Underground Violet Rave every day for the past, now going on to the 3rd year. And yeah.
Wow. So that, wow, I didn't know that, because those shows, the raves that I went to, incredible events, by the way, probably one of my favorite events at these NFT conferences. It just seems so fluid and professional. I didn't realize that was your first time organizing live events, which is not easy to organize, by the way. Like, I see so many people, especially in the Web3 space, organizing music events, and they just don't know how it works with equipment or anything like that. But you absolutely had that nailed. How did you even learn that stuff? Did you like work with people in your community to help advise you with that, make sure that the right things are happening? Like, how did you even find the venue? How do you do that shit? It's
Yeah,
incredible.
thank you, man. I really, really appreciate that. And yeah, it was my first time ever. These last 2 years was my first experience with hosting events, getting sponsorships, booking talent, performing, organizing, booking lighting, all of these things. They were so new to me, but I think, very similarly to my entire career that we were talking about in this podcast, it was just more so of like, man, I love learning through experience, right? I don't want to have someone consult me on all these things. Maybe that would have been helpful. I don't want to like research or learn. I don't want to do all that. I just want to do it, learn from it, do it quickly so I learn quicker so that the next time I could adapt and learn from those lessons and do it better the second
Yes.
time. And we're going to make mistakes the second time, and then third time we'll do better. Fourth time we'll do even better, and then we just keep improving. The first rave we did, man, we didn't know anything. We actually we got screwed over, but I'm grateful that we did it so quickly. 4 months into my journey of building this community, we just did it, right? And it was funny because everyone was saying that you shouldn't do it, right? Like, someone called me. I remember we were going through venues in New York City. It was me and my friend Muda, and we were just going from venue to venue to venue, getting rejected, getting rejected. All these venues look so professional, and they were just looking at us like little kids, like shoot, like that's the type of energy we were getting. But we just kept going from venue to venue to venue, and after 8 venues, we were outside of our ninth one, and I remember getting a call from this one person that I'll I'll explain why I dislike this person, but he went on this whole entire conversation with me saying like, man, like, you're looking for venues for this event, like, like, this is too ambitious. You just started your community and you don't know like what it takes to like host an event. You need paperwork, contracts, all of these things. Like, I can help you. Why don't you be a part of the thing that I'm throwing, right? Like, be a part of my thing, like, bring your community to my event because you can't do it, right? And I remember just like listening to him, and then a part of me was like, man, like, maybe I am a little in over my head. But I remember hanging up. We walked into the ninth venue, Gold Sounds Bar at Brooklyn, and we talked to the person. We locked in our first venue, and that conversation, we finally secured a venue after getting rejected like 8 9 times. And I was just like, man, like, thank God we did this shit, right? And I remember being so happy. I posted a picture of it on the timeline. People were going crazy. I was like, first Underground Violet Rave's happening, and people were so happy.
Wow.
And yeah, man, we just did it. All of our sponsorships that we've secured for that event backed out a week before, right? Because I didn't understand how to communicate with sponsors, how to make them take me seriously, right? I'm a very big person on accountability, that everything's my fault. It's not their fault that they backed out. It's my fault for not handling it well to make sure that they don't back out. And yeah, the bartender took over $2,000 in bar tabs when we got screwed over on that front too, because we made a terrible deal. And yeah, we got screwed over just left and right. But like, honestly, I'm so grateful because those mistakes never happened again, right? And we just got better
Right.
and better, second,
Yeah.
third, fourth, fifth, sixth Raven. Yeah.
Wow, incredible. Do you know the Beckett quote, ever tried, ever failed, no matter, try again, fail better.
Hell yeah. I like feel better. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's all about failing and making them early, and that's how you eventually lead to success.
Yeah.
Wow, what a journey, especially with the live scene. So you said you've done quite a lot of cities now. What other cities are on your bucket list around the world?
Oh man. So yeah, there's a lot. So we've done Brooklyn 2 times. We've done LA, Denver, Virginia, Cincinnati, Miami 2 times. And what I've realized, man, like I've always wanted to travel, right? And I don't know, going to all these different cities in the USA, I was expecting just completely different experiences in all of these places and all these locations, which I had, right? They were all very, very fun and I don't regret anything. But I realized that, America's the same. You know what I mean? Everywhere. America is just very same, right? Like it's like, LA to Miami to Cincinnati, everything's the same. It's just the structures are a little different. Maybe some people's lingo is a little different. Like I really want to leave the country. Like that's my next step. I want to leave the country so, so bad. I want to host a rave in Berlin, actually.
Yeah, I was
And
going to
I think
ask.
that yeah, and we were actually thinking about it last year, but it was just too much planning wise before Miami, so we ended up not doing it. But Berlin is definitely something that I can say is on my bucket list. I would love to go to Tokyo. I would love to go to Toronto in Canada.
Wow.
Montreal and Quebec are some of my favorite places. I want to go to Mexico City. I want to go to like Colombia is a very random one that I would love to do. And like, yeah, like, I want to experience different cultures, right? I want to bring other, new people together. So yeah, I want to go out of the country 100%.
Love that. Well, if there's anything I can do to help with Berlin, then just hit me up. Let's go back to your first music NFTs and how that eventually led to the Raver Realms.
Yeah, man. I think for me, right, like building community was very, very important, right? And I think that a lot of the things that I've seen of people that blew up, right? The reason that they're blowing up, only lasted 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, right? Is because they failed to build a sustainable community, right? I think so
Yeah.
many people are focused on transactionary things that they don't understand that the actual ethos and the actual, things you're building that will truly let you stay are things that aren't tangible, right? How much value have you provided to your audience, right? How little are you actually taking from them and extracting from them, right? How genuine and kind you are to the people that support you, right? These things are not necessarily tangible like a US dollar bill. However, those are the things that will actually make the people that I've seen really on the top stay and last and have that sustainability, right? So for me, I remember entering into this collectible space on Twitter, building my music, community, growing the fan base of people that enjoy me as a person and also my music. And everyone the first couple of months were telling me like, drop a music collectible, drop something, we want to buy it, blah, blah, blah. But I knew it was very important for me to really stamp myself as someone that built a true community. And only when I could say that I've done that, then I could drop a collectible that people could buy into, right? And that was kind of the reason we've done the spaces every single day. We've hosted the raves around the country. We've done all of these things. And then after 2 years, October 23rd, 2023, I finally dropped my first major music collectible. Of course, I've experimented with little things here and there, but even then, like I made sure that it was important to even have like a 7 month gap in between my experimentation, so I'm not taking things. I just want to give more than I receive because I know that's going to be the thing that lets me stay here. So yeah, I dropped my major, music collectible, and it was funny. We dropped it in the bearest of the bear market, right? When everyone was saying that NFTs are dead. No one was buying NFTs when I dropped it, right? And I could have easily dropped it on the top of the year 2023 when, sentiment was a lot higher. Maybe I would have even sold out, right? We're about a little over 1/3 sold out. And if I dropped it earlier, sometimes I think maybe we could have sold out. But if I dropped it earlier and I was compromising on the vision, I was compromising on the community values, I was compromising on the art, is it something that I can stand behind 5, 10 years down the line? And I think the answer is no, right? So I'd much rather drop it in the barest of the bear market. It's perceived by a lot of the people that don't actually matter in the long term as unsuccessful. However, it's something that I know that I'm playing the long term game 10 to 15 years down the line. So there's no pressure for me to sell it out. There's no pressure for me to try, appeasing to people's perception who don't actually believe in the music in the first place, right? I think that's the thing that's so toxic with the Web3 space. And I think a lot of people are destroying their communities because they're trying to uphold this public perception so much that they're not understanding that they're not actually contributing to their longevity, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's very, very important for me, that entire statement. And yeah, when it comes to me dropping this project October 23rd, now we're just building with real people, because now people know that we've built something. We've proven that we're here in the long term. And now if people believe in it, they can buy into it, right? So yeah.
Wow, man, so much wisdom, so much foresight. Do you are you a chess player by any chance?
I actually love chess, yeah.
Yeah, I can tell because you're thinking so many steps ahead, and you're thinking more about the long term goal than the short term. Mate, we should have a game sometime.
I would love to. I
It'd be
would love
fun.
to. The issue with chess for me is that there's no one who's willing to play around me, So I would love to play chess. Yeah.
Let's have a game. I try to keep it in real life because I'm
Yeah.
otherwise I'm tied to screens, and I do get a bit addicted to chess, so I keep it for in person.
Mhm.
But mate, next time we're in the same vicinity, let's definitely have a game.
We'll have to.
Tell me more about the Raver Realm. What inspired it, how it came about. I love that you did the art, the visuals yourself, as well as 9 songs, and also I think it's right now the most revolutionary music NFT collection because I love that you kind of had the foresight of building it alongside Spotify, not against Spotify, and that completely blew my mind. What inspired that whole collection?
Yeah, man, I appreciate it a lot. I'll give a brief explanation and summary of the collection for those of you who don't know, but basically Raver Realm is my version of characterizing my music, right? I have this theory that we can use blockchain technology to increase people's connection to the art in itself, which is absurd to say, right? Because most people think that music is the biggest part of their life. But what if you can connect to music a lot more than you're connecting to it right now? And I think the way to do that is by personifying your music, right? Turning these stories that you turn into songs, into production and lyrics, and transforming that into actual tangible characters that people can relate to more than just something as simple as the thing that they listen to, right? And I think
Mm.
that's where the idea stemmed from. So what I did is I spent the last year really creating 9 original songs, hundreds of songs, but boiling it down to 9, turning them into characters, and then drawing 1,800 unique versions of those characters, right? To really personify it in a way where people can connect to something.
You drew everyone.
So how it happened is it wasn't me drawing 1,800 unique things. I drew all the layers, right? So
Okay.
for example, I draw the toxic queen layer. I drew the alien eyes. I drew the blunt mouth and like all the layers, right? I think it was maybe like 430 or something. And then you combine all of those in a generative element. And then that basically comes with 1,800 unique characters, right? So that's kind of how it worked. And I spent the last year really doing that, right? And what the idea is, right, is that, okay, you have personified music, but more so like I wanted to bring a collectability aspect to music, right? And I think you've done that. And I think a lot of other people have done it. And I think I wanted to just double down on it, right? Like, we have common ravers, right? AK the same thing as saying common songs. We have rare songs, rare ravers, and we have legendary ravers, right? We have different realms, right? We have the underground realm, the ethereal realm, the dystopian realm. Each realm represents a different genre of music, right? Different color ravers. And I think all of this, it really is inspired by Pokemon, just because I loved
Love that.
Pokemon my entire yeah, I love Pokemon my entire
Same.
life. And, I just wanted to bring fun back to collecting music, right? People collect vinyls all the time, but what if there was rare vinyls and common vinyls and legendary vinyls and, different color vinyls that represent different sounds? And I think that's something that you can really bring to life using this technology. And that's what I wanted to do, right? So that's the one aspect of the project. The second aspect of the project, right, is the ability to continue working on what I want to do and what my goals are as a musician while having the people that inherently support me benefit. And I think that's what I did with the introduction of streaming level rewards, right? And what that is, you explained it. Say you have the Toxic Queen Raver. It's the character, but it's also the single that's going to be out on Spotify and Apple Music. Say that single reaches 1,000 streams. What happens to your Toxic Queen Raver character is it levels up from 0 to 1, evolving the character, right? say the single now goes from 1,000 streams to 5,000 streams, right? Increasing my listener base, my fan base. The people who supported me and got the raver, now the Toxic Queen goes from level 1 to level 2, which evolves and unlocks utilities every single time it levels up, right? Now you may get unreleased music from me. The next level up, you may get unlimited access to my headlining shows, right? So as my fan base goes up, which contributes to my goal that I've always had ever since I dropped out of college, which is selling out a stadium filled with thousands of people, me getting closer to that goal will actually help the people that believed in me, because now their actual collectible is going to go up in value, because the more fans you have, the more potential you have for an increase of super fans.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's the entire explanation of the project. And we haven't dropped any of these 9 singles on Spotify and Apple Music yet to actually begin this process. So I'm super excited to see what happens then. And I'm just excited to increase my musical career, right? While using this technology on the back end.
So how many levels are there per character, and is there like a final level? Like, say you get like 100 million streams, does the level keep going up, or is there like a cap on that? What did you think about
we can actually add more levels if we wanted to, but right now there is a cap. There's 6 levels, right? So it goes 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 25,000. No, sorry, 25,000, 100,000, and a million. No, 10,000, 25,000, 100,000, and a million. There we go. That's what it is, right? So the cap, the level 6 is a million streams, which basically gets you unlimited access, lifetime access to all underground Violet raves and all headlining Jayden Violet shows for the rest of the life, right? If you have a level 6 raver. So yeah.
So cool. Incredible. And what utilities are you offering?
Man, so much, right? I think the main thing that I wanted to do with this project, right, is I didn't want to offer a lot in the beginning, because I've made that mistake in the past, right? Setting people's expectations so high just for the hope of them pressing the buy button, and then me taking on too much, not being able to actually withhold those things, right? So for the first thing that I would say to people interested is I only want people to collect if they're interested in the art, or if they're interested in the music, or if they're interested in my vision, right? If you're interested in one of those 3 things, then collect it for that. And then everything else is kind of going to be a benefit. But we've done a lot of things, right? You know, of course, you get access to unreleased music by me. You get access to unreleased content. You get access to exclusive UVR podcast shows that we're going to start, which I'm actually super excited about, only for holders. The first 3 years, you get free access to all underground Violet raves and headlining Jayden Violet shows. So whatever's going to happen from October 23rd, 2023, all the way till October 23rd, 2026 is all going to be free for holders. We're going to do merch in the near future. We're going to do, unlimited, limited access to drops. We have cool things. If you have 5 ravers or more, you get free visual art NFTs from me every single month that we just introduced. We're doing vinyl raffles for holders. A bunch of things, honestly. Free drinks at the raves, right? But all of these things are just added on. I don't want to use these things as like selling points, if that makes sense. But yeah.
Okay. Incredible. Wow. Jayden, we're going to come to a close soon. Just want to say thank you so much for taking the time, being here, especially with your busy schedule. I know you're going to run off in a bit. Can you tell us, so you told us a bit about what's to come, any other projects that's coming on, or anything that our listeners should know about? And also, where can people find you?
Yeah, man. Where people can find me is just Jayden Violet. Everywhere, Jadyn, and then Violet like the color. Literally everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, X, Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud. Yeah, you could just type that in. And what's coming next, man? I think this year specifically, right? I was really reevaluating 2023 and seeing like what I could have done better. Because at the end of the day, I still haven't reached my goal of selling out the stadium of thousands of people, and I have to really think to myself, like, why wasn't that done? Right? There has to be something that I have to do differently, because hard work isn't something that I need to alternate as part of the equation, right? Because I'm utilizing every single hour. So the only thing that could possibly be changed in order for me to reach the goal is where I'm actually putting my hours, right?
Yes.
Being extremely intentional with my time is something that I really want to do in 2024, to the point where it's like, man, sometimes on Saturdays, I have literally 2 hours set aside on my calendar and my schedule to look at my calendar and schedule for the past week and see what I could have put my hours towards better. I was literally doing that last night, and it's actually very, very helpful. Yeah, it's kind of absurd. I'm like, this year I want to be super intentional, super specific and stuff with every single hour, every single 30 minutes. So yeah, I think this year I'm spending a lot more time on actually pushing my music. I think sometimes we get so like, so entrapped in Web3 and all this new stuff that I have to realize that there's
Yeah.
opportunities everywhere. It's just my decision to choose which opportunities I'm taking, right? And I think a lot of times people fall into the trap of taking the wrong opportunities or opportunities that don't contribute to their long-term goals. So for me, allocating a lot more time to increasing my music, right? Increasing the people that fall in love with my music, not just people that collect my NFTs, but people who listen to my music, right? Making a lot more TikTok and short form video content is huge for me this year, to the point where I'm spending 2-3 hours every day making TikTok content. So that collaborations, making music, is something that's all going to be coming this year, and of course more raves. So yeah.
Epic. And Jayden, what's your advice to artists who might be starting out, or artists who might be successful in Web2 but have never explored Web3 yet?
Yeah, I mean, for artists just starting out, right? I would just say that the only thing that I could say to me looking back to when I first dropped out of college is just very simply just work harder. You know what I mean? Like the amount of time you're putting into working on your craft and grinding your music, pushing it out. Like there's always more you could do, right? I think if any human being looks in the mirror and asks themselves, am I working as hard as I possibly can? 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. So that means you always have more. There's always more to do, right? So just keep working harder, right? I feel like that's the only thing that I could say. Keep making music, right? Never forget about that. And people that are killing it in Web 2 but want to get into Web 3, I would just say that, you know, experiment, try things out, right? It's all about having ideas and executing on them, right? And then you're obviously going to be fearful of things not working or not being perceived correctly, but like I mentioned before, when you have that fear, that means you have to do it, right? Because it's all about experimenting. That's how you become, in the leader of the cutting edge technology, how you become innovative, right? By doing these things. So yeah, just experiment, right? There's nothing wrong, and no one can really knock you down for trying, right? So yeah.
Jayden, how do you switch off? Would you say you have balance in your life right now with time on and time off, or not?
Ooh, this year, I really just don't. I don't know. I'm just trying to rewire my brain to thinking that I don't know. I just don't. I just work, man. It's just work always, and that may be bad, right? But like, honestly, it works for me right now, and like I just want to keep going, right? I don't want to stop, and I feel like I have the fuel in me to do so, right? So if I have the fuel in me to do so, it's like I don't know why I should stop. I think the only thing that helps me refuel is spending time with family. That's one thing that I'll
Right.
always love. I was just in New York with family, and like that's one thing that I won't feel guilty about, right? Going to the club with friends or doing all these things I will feel, but like spending time with my mom and stuff like that, that's always something that's always going to give me energy. And yeah, I always like would say
Keeps you
that
grounded.
for sure.
Love that. Okay, Jayden. Well, Jayden, it's been incredible having you on the show. Thank you so much for being here. Everybody, check out Jayden Violet on all his socials. Check out Rave Around, which is minting right now at the time of recording. Thanks for tuning in to GM Good Music. Until next time, this is Josh Savage signing off now. Keep exploring the harmony of music and innovation. GN, let's go.